In this video, we will explore about the concept of return on investment and how to accurately calculate it. When you put your capital into a product, your primary goal is to earn returns. However, take a look at the balance scale on the screen. Investing is not just about the return represented here by the coins. It is equally about safety represented by the shield. While you want your money to grow, the preservation of your initial capital is a critical parameter. When we evaluate an investment, we must look at three things, which are the level of return, how much that return fluctuates, which we call volatility, and whether the return comes as periodic payments or an increase in value. Many beginners make the mistake of looking only at the money return. If you gain a profit of 100 rupees, that sounds good, but it does not tell the whole story. As you can see, money terms alone are not a correct representation because they do not account for how much you had to invest to get that result. Instead, we must look at the percentage return. This allows us to see the return in conjunction with the capital invested. The formula for return on investment or ROI is the net profit divided by the investment multiplied by 100. The decision rule here is simple. A higher potential ROI equals a better opportunity for investors. However, there is a major caution we need to address. You must be careful when using ROI numbers for investments where the returns are not fixed or known in advance. Think about asset classes like equity or mutual funds. In these cases, you cannot guarantee what the number will be. We often have to rely on estimates based on past returns, or we make assumptions for future returns. So, while the formula is useful, remember that in the real world, the input numbers are often just educated guesses. So, why do we go through the trouble of calculating these returns? There are three main pillars to this. First is adequacy. You need to ask yourself if the return meets your financial goals and if it compensates you enough for the risk you are taking. The second is comparison. You need a way to compare this specific investment against other options available in the market. And the third is benchmarking. This helps you evaluate how your performance stacks up against a standard like a market index. Now, let us break down what actually makes up a return. Imagine you have an investment. You might receive periodic payouts, which is money flowing into your hand, like interest from a bank, dividends from stocks, or rent from a property. Then there is appreciation, which is the gain or loss in the value of the asset itself, like a house price going up. When you add the periodic payouts plus the appreciation, that equals your total return. So, the formula for ROI is your total returns divided by your total cost multiplied by 100. Let us apply this to a real world scenario involving the purchase of 150 shares. Suppose you buy these shares at a cost of 25 rupees each. That creates a share cost of 3,750 rupees, but do not forget the fees. You also pay a commission fee of 20 rupees. When you add 3,750 plus 20, your total cost comes to 3,770 rupees. Now, let us look at what happens when you sell. During the time you held the shares, you receive dividends. This is calculated as 150 shares multiplied by 1 rupee per share, which equals 150 rupees. Then you sell the shares at 30 rupees each. However, you have to pay another commission of 20 rupees. So, your sales proceeds are 4,480 rupees. To find your total returns, you add the sales proceeds of 4,480 plus the dividends of 150. This equals 4,630 rupees. If we plug this into our simple return calculation, we take 4,630 divided by the initial cost of 3,770 and then subtract 1. The result is 0.23. This means you have a holding period return of 23%. But here is the problem with that 23% figure. It tells us how much we made, but it does not tell us how long it took. A return of 23% earned over just 1 year is vastly different from a return of 23% earned over 5 years. The holding period return ignores the investment horizon. To fix this, we need to convert the return to a uniform period, typically 1 year, so we can compare investments fairly. This brings us to the annualized concept. We are standardizing the return to a yearly basis. The formula is the holding period return divided by the months held multiplied by 12. Let us look at an example application. If that previous investment where we made 23% was actually held for 15 months, we would calculate it as follows. 23% divided by 15 multiplied by 12. This gives us an annualized return of 18.4%. However, even simple annualization has a flaw. It ignores the compounding effect. In finance, we assume that returns are reinvested to earn even more returns. Think of it like a snowball rolling down a hill, getting bigger as it collects more snow. This is the time value of money. Money received earlier is worth more than money received later because it can be invested. Simple math misses this. To account for this, we use the CAGR or compounded annual growth rate. This calculates the rate at which the original investment grows to the final value, assuming the profits are reinvested. The formula is the end value divided by the beginning value raised to the power of 1 divided by n minus 1. Here, the letter n stands for the holding period in years. Let's go back to our earlier example and apply CAGR assuming a 5-year horizon. Step 1 is setting up the equation where 3770 multiplied by 1 plus r to the power of 5 equals 4630. In step 2, we isolate the variable. So 1 plus r to the power of 5 equals 1.23. In step 3, we solve for r by taking 1.23 raised to the power of 0.2 and then subtracting 1. This gives us 0.04227. The final result is 4.2%. Note how different this is from the simple 23% we saw earlier. This accounts for the time value of money. CAGR provides us with some crucial insights. It offers precision because it includes both the holding period and the time value of money. Regarding its nature, it is a smoothened rate of return. It acts as if the growth was steady every year, even if it was not. It is the accepted standard in financial markets for any period greater than 1 year. However, CAGR has a weakness when money moves in and out multiple times. Look at this timeline. You buy a share in July 2011. Then you receive cash in dividends in October 2011, October 2012 and October 2013. Finally, you sell the share in January 2014. Because these cash flows happen at different dates, the direct CAGR formula cannot be used. The solution is to use the XIRR function in Excel. You input the specific dates and the matching cash flows to get the result. In this example, the result would be 8.06%. Finally, we need a reality check. CAGR is just a calculated average. It does not represent the actual growth each year. Look at the graph. The straight dotted line is the CAGR showing a smooth journey, but the solid jagged line shows the actual return. The price went up and down significantly. That volatility reflects the risk in the investment, which the smooth CAGR number might hide.